Happy New Year, it's Nico from POP Incursions, and today I am going to be breaking down episode 8 of season 2 of What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602, and this has to be my favourite episode.
Oh darling, I'm no ordinary woman. I'm the goddess of death.
This is chaos magic.
And yet I was the bad guy. We are not going
for one last fight.
Thor will save our world. Let's talk.
Now, in this episode, I might add in a few medieval twangs here and there in theme with the episode, so keep your ear out. And oh my god, what an episode. Hands down has to be my favourite What If of all time. Now, when I'm filming this, the finale for season 2 hasn't come out yet, so there's always room. But it's very hard, I feel like, to try and top this. I absolutely loved it. The episode beginneth with medieval music and Prince Loki performing a soliloquy from Hamlet in Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, which sets us in the United Kingdom. We've seen Loki perform and host the arts in olden times. I speak of Ragnarok. We hear the breath in the chest of Thor, and we pan to the royal box where we see Her Majesty Queen Hela and her younger brother, His Highness Prince Thor, and 2 court members, Sir Happy Hogan and Sir Nicholas Fury, all observing the young Prince Loki performing. I already love this episode. Who doesn't love a non-catastrophic royal family of Asgard where Queen Hela is the sovereign and she has her 2 younger brothers, but they're actually getting along and they can coexist together? I need all the backstory as soon as possible. Henceforth, we hear thunder and see lightning, and then a rift in the sky appears, emitting green energy, which pulls up Loki into the rift. But fear not, Sir Fury summons Captain Carter, and she rescueth the young prince. In spite of that, the Queen is pulled upward and into the dark rift that threatens their world, and Captain Carter is unable to save Her Majesty, and she is taken by the rift, leaveth her young brother, the next in line, the new king. Long live His Majesty, King Thor. So barely into the episode and Queen Hela is gone, and this is the only part of the episode that I'm disappointed with, because I kind of at least expected a line or 2 from Hela before she was going to be fridged. I don't want to say fridged or dead because we don't know for sure, but I mean, you know, we didn't see her for the rest of the episode. And the clip of the trailer where she's on the horse with the scepter, very clickbaity, Marvel, because we didn't even get to see an up-close one of that. The grief-struck king orders his kingsmen to capture Captain Carter for failing her duty and losing the Queen, while falling. Her Majesty's scepter fell to the ground, and instead of the Mind Stone being within, as seen in the first Avengers, it is the Time Stone. But this heavily connects to the rest of the episode because essentially time is entangled into these worlds. Peggy then tries to apologise to King Thor, and I was surprised that a British character who lived in a time where the royalty was prominent would use an incorrect style by saying Your Highness instead of Your Majesty.
Your Highness.
At the time of World War I and World War II, Peggy would have grown up, she would have become Captain Carter and fought Hydra. That was also the reign of King George V, King Edward VIII, aka the Duke of Windsor, and King George VI. Out of all characters to get the style wrong, Peggy, the British character, no. One thing I have noticed a lot in the MCU and kind of media in general is it nearly always almost uses the wrong style when addressing royalty, and especially like you have in Civil War.
Your Highness.
You know, you have when referring to like T'Challa, for example, or T'Chaka, even in the episode with T'Chaka, episode 2, they say Your Highness.
He does not look all that threatening.
Looks can be deceiving, Your Highness.
In modern times, the correct term is Your Royal Highness for children of a sovereign, so a prince or a princess, and almost always the monarch is Your Majesty. Now, the one part that they do get away with in this episode, and it's solely because of the time, is that in 1602 they did only use Your Highness for children of a sovereign. But when she said this to Thor, when was it? It was when he was a king.
Long live King Thor Odin's son.
And we see straight away that that transition happens because that's how it works. Most notably, when Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II died, immediately it was His Majesty King Charles III. And that's how it works with monarchy. So that's why straight away she should have said Your Majesty, because now he is the king. And fair enough if that was a once-off mistake, but we hear from other characters later in the episode who continue to refer to him as Your Highness when this is incorrect. Consequently, Sir Hogan proclaimeth the once prince, now king, and everyone kneels and swears their allegiance to King Thor.
Long live King Thor Odin's son.
King Thor says that since her arrival, the storms, aka the rift or the incursion, hath only grown each day, and that she is cursed, and orders his kingsmen to seize her. Captain Carter escapeth the king's forces, and taketh refuge upon a roof upon a dwelling, whereas ever she encountereth an old acquaintance. The Watcher, who narrateth the episode, but akin to beings of enhanced cosmic awareness, Captain Carter now too can listen to the words of her old friend. The Watcher is surprised to learneth that she too can listen, and while he offers her an opportunity to return to her home world, she refuseth in the name of Captain Carter. Captain Carter understands what's wrong with this universe, aka an incursion, and this teaches us what may be going on.
Two time periods, the 1600s and the early 21st century, have been compressed, stuck together like two pieces of gum.
We learn that similar to its comic counterpart, this universe is it being entangled with another. A universe set in 1602 is being squashed together with a universe set in the 21st century. That also sounds a lot like an incursion as described by Reed Richards or Mr. Fantastic in Multiverse of Madness.
An incursion occurs when the boundary between two universes erodes, and they collide.
We returneth to the castle where we see His Majesty King Thor and his royal court, Sir Happy Hogan, the Scarlet Witch, and Sir Nicholas Fury, who appears to be in a similar position as Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. or now Sabre in our universe, but of course it's medieval times, so I'm unsure what the title would be. Sir Happy appears to still be the head of security, but more as a general or a commander. Sir Nicholas nameth locations of which have bared witness to these cracks in reality, namely Nebula's Observatory, the Isle of Ego, and Groot's Grove. It's interesting to see that the space heroes are back on Earth, and that it's at this time, because in 1602, most would have believed that the Earth was flat, and this myth about the Earth being flat actually dates back to the 17th century, so it matches perfectly. King Thor wants Captain Carter to be found, but the Scarlet Witch, or Wanda Merlin, speaketh up to His Majesty to reaffirm her belief that she is not the cause, but will still be their saviour. Wanda revealeth that she senses another, someone who has originated from a time yet to come,
Who has fallen through time, unaware that their presence is causing our universe to collapse.
and she even shows one of the spherical balls of magic that she also used in Multiverse of Madness when she showed Strange and America Chavez, her two boys in the multiverse. And I really love seeing this advisor role for Wanda to King Thor, and we need more of this for sure. Wanda admits that even she cannot findeth the Forerunner, as it is beyond her capabilities. Sir Fury then says, "Sounds like you have your mission," and we see Captain Carter hiding on the window ledge, eavesdropping. But when King Thor asks, Sir Fury, who are you speaking to? He says,
No one, Your Highness.
incorrect. It is no one, Your Majesty. We travel to a stable where a gentleman has fallen to slumber. Alas, he is awoke by cold water as Captain Carter is here to seek counsel and assistance. In this universe, the genius, billionaire, playboy philanthropist we know is seen as a madman, for his ingenuity is so advanced it is seen as madness. Similar to fellow polymaths who too were viewed to have lunacy, such as Michelangelo, Nikola Tesla, and Empedocles. Captain Carter brought the skull of Yorick that Loki used as a prop, as the magical storm left magical matter that Tony inspects using a microscope. Keeping in mind the first microscope was invented in 1590, only 12 years from this moment. As Captain Carter describes it being likely radioactive, Tony is perplexed and enamored by these words, as back then they had not yet been used nor understood. Tony then says, keep talking, it's like opium to my ears. And of course, back then, opium was mainly used recreationally by royalty and aristocrats. They conceptualized trying to trace the Forerunner, as they will likely share the same magical signature as the storm. They realized the only thing that would work is the scepter that Queen Hela and now King Thor has, and he is likely not going to hand it over to someone viewed as a madman, nor to Captain Carter. Tony then suggests they need someone to steal it. We then see His Highness Prince Loki in a carriage with two maidens as he accounts the character Iago, the antagonist of Shakespeare's Othello. We then see Robin Hood and the band of merry men loot the carriage, but who is Robin Hood? Roger's Hood, of course. If you think about the values of Captain America from our universe and what he has done, it makes a lot of sense that he would be Robin Hood, or should I say Roger's Hood. It's also important to note that he has the beard and slick back hair from Infinity War. Scott Lang and Bucky Barnes are his merry men, and this trio is indefectible. Captain Carter appeareth, and Roger's Hood is perplexed to see his maiden once again. Maid Margaret is a direct parallel to Robin Hood's Maid Marian. Very cute. Peggy says, I'm dead in this world. That's great. And while it sounds morbid, she evidently desires the opportunity to be with her suitor once again. We see Roger's Hood and Captain Carter drinking ale aside a window in a treetop tavern, paralleling their conversation in a pub from episode 1 of season 1 of What If. They have a brief moment before they are attacked by the Yellow Jackets, which I imagine are like a special faction. If you notice, Bucky retains the black and gold metal arm. So is this simply because of an injury from a Merryman? Or does he have a past like 616 Bucky? We see Sir Hogan turn a light shade of purple, and Roger's Hood says, Bucky, don't make him mad. I will say, in this universe, happy is not very happy, and I feel like that's a huge pun. Captain Carter is thrown into the dungeons at the Tower of London, and the Red Skull is the executioner. Recount Hela was Odin's executioner, and this may be telling of what type of queen Hela was, although her legacy and the state of her kingdom certainly does not reflect too poorly on her. Peggy calls out to the Watcher, who once again offers her an opportunity to go home, but she refuseth, and she wants to rescueth this universe. We learneth from the Watcher that when a universe is proximate to his demise, he cannot see the events which have yet to come, which is telling considering he is the one that sees all, knows all, and has seen what could, would, or should ever happen.
I'm unable to see the coming events clearly when a universe is close to extinction.
As the multiverse continues to drive into chaos, it appeareth his cosmic abilities are not compatible with the reckoning of the multiverse. We learneth more of what may happen in Doomsday of a Universe when the Watcher says, what if, after the universe resets, you can't go home? Likely indicating the path to Secret Wars.
What if, what if, what if?
Captain Carter escapeth her dungeon to summon the monster in the Iron Mask, but the man withholding the monster prefers his imprisonment than his freedom. Nevertheless, she is successful at summoning the monster, and in this universe, the Hulk has long hair and a beard, which I have to say look quite smashing. We see Captain Carter on the back of the Hulk as they escape across the night sky, paralleling Captain Carter on the back of the Hydra Stomper. When the man withholding the monster re-emergeth, he is aided by an elixir that is concocted by the genius Tony Stark.
Is this grain alcohol?
Never mind. It is almost like he gets a flu-like illness or withdrawals after being the Hulk. Tony revealeth his greatest invention. I have no idea what to even call that or what it was until I saw the ending. And Captain Carter is underwhelmed because she is spoileth by the technology of the 21st century. However, in the 1600s, it's certainly quite a great invention. Despite the reception, we learneth the invention can reveal the Forerunner and returneth them to their home world. You know, whence the royal stone is inserted.
From whence they came, once, the prized royal stone is inserted.
Roger's Hood and his merry men arriveth with the captain's vibranium shield. They establish their plan to carry out their heist during the next royal court. His Highness Prince Loki is still speaking to those young maidens of Iago from Othello, those poor young maidens. We then see Captain Carter and Roger's Hood disguised, the merry men Bucky and Lang as trumpeters, and Tony in the choir. Sir Hogan introduces King Thor as our Lord Highness. Oh, wrong on so many levels. Okay, I'll give you a few options that would be a little bit better. His Majesty King Thor. His Majesty the most worthy King Thor. Or, if they wanted to be really accurate, what the actual English monarch in 1602 used. Thor the First, by the grace of God, King of England, France and Ireland, the defender of the faith, etc. When the storm entered the castle, I got a real Sleeping Beauty vibe from when Maleficent appeared. The Scarlet Witch useth her powers to fend off the storm and defend the people. The Hulk smasheth the walls of the castle, shouting, "Signal, signal, signal," and Captain Carter, Roger's Hood and the merry men begin their battle with Sir Hogan and the Kingsmen. His Majesty King Thor invites His Highness Prince Loki
You let us join the fray, brother. Where's the hammer I got you?
to join the fray. However, Prince Loki has misplaced his hammer that was gifted by King Thor to him, no doubt being Mjolnir. Tony appeareth with his invention as the merry men attempteth to apprehend the scepter. Roger's Hood invites Sir Hogan to a duel in which Sir Hogan insulteth Roger's Hood many times. Roger's Hood slices off the feather in Sir Hogan's cap, which awakeneth the monster within. Sir Hogan transformeth into his Hulk counterpart, the Freak, which we met just in episode 3 of this season. Captain Carter beggeth His Majesty to hand over the scepter, but His Majesty explaineth that him, his sister, and the people trusteth Captain Carter before she faileth. That one was difficult. His Majesty summons for the All-Father, which doesn't turn out to be Odin. Instead is a vibranium sword gifted by the King of Wakanda, who is too plagued by the rift in the sky. We can see that instead of Mjolnir helping him summon the thunder, it is instead the All-Father. King Thor and Captain Carter fight, and suddenly Wanda Merlin joineth and fighteth against King Thor to try and apprehend the scepter and get it to Stark with the aid of a disguised Sir Fury. Wanda makes a direct quote from Endgame.
I'm sorry, my king, but we're out of time.
We are out of time.
But instead of Vision saying it, it is her saying it. And, just like in that moment, she is still fending off two separate forces. After some struggle, Tony's invention works, and Captain Carter donneth the gauntlet, which is able to identify the Forerunner, revealeth to be Roger's Hood, aka Steve Rogers. Steve recalls a battle where he fighteth a monster from the sky armed with a golden glove, aka Thanos in Infinity War. But when striking the gauntlet, Steve struck the Time Stone, which is the cause for this incursion. King Thor asks Captain Carter to finish the task she was summoned for. Prince Loki helps Wanda Merlin up, and poor Steve and Peggy have to say their goodbyes yet again. Peggy says we never get our happy ending, and Steve says I'm sure somewhere out there we do, which of course we know to be true because of Steve and Peggy at the end of Endgame. However, I imagine she also means specifically her getting her happy ending and not just a variant of herself, because that's not helping our homegirl. Steve presses the button to return to his home world, and suddenly all is fixed. Peggy is left alone in the castle hall, without Steve and without anyone. We don't really see any more of the other characters. We don't know, what happened to them. Is Queen Hela stuck in the Endgame universe, or is she just dead? That's the only part of all of this. It's like, okay, what just happened? And we know from The Watcher, some parts of when he was speaking was like, when the universe resets, what if you're stuck there? If a universe resets, does that mean, that never happened, people can't remember, or what's the situation? Peggy's in a tavern, and we can either hear her narrating, or she's speaking directly to us, or it's her thoughts, but this is new for a character in What If. And she speaks of a superstition that they had during the war.
That victory was its own sort of curse, because every battle you won would mean you're only getting further from home.
And this sentiment can be felt through Steve Rogers' journey as Captain America in our 616 universe. We hear a portal open, and Peggy says,
"That you, Watcher? Come here to gloat?"
And we hear the voice of Strange Supreme.
Nah, I just thought you could use a friend.
And Peggy asks, what are you doing here? And he says, oh Peg, have I got a story for you? Then it just says, to be continued, setting up the finale, which there seems to be a lot of secrecy almost around the finale. I'm not 100% sure if it is going to be like last season, but this season hasn't been exactly the same, because obviously we saw Wanda, Merlin and Fury take Captain Carter to this universe, but this was for this episode. But then we saw in this episode, as well as in What If Kahodi Reshaped the World, Strange Supreme coming to recruit people. And from the trailer, we are yet to see a certain Thanos. We have yet to see Kahodi and Captain Carter together. We have yet to see Killmonger. There's a few things we haven't seen yet. So it seems very unpredictable, but I am hoping that we may get some more about Queen Hela or some of the other characters in this episode. I have to say, while the finale has yet to be released, this is absolutely my favourite episode of What If, full stop. Queen Hela, Wanda Merlin, Captain Carter, King Thor, Prince it's just amazing, and I love historical reenactments, and when the MCU especially revisits history, because they put so much time and attention into it. Look at Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Miss Marvel, and the Kahodi episode and this episode. So I'm really here for the 1602 and historical themed episodes, and I've already seen on social media so many people saying, they could make a 1602 Avengers film and it would be amazing. They could make a series of 1602 and it would be amazing. And there's a lot to tell. And the fact that they mention things like Nebula's Observatory, Isle of Ego, it begs to reason that provisions are there should they ever wish to revisit this universe. And I certainly want to revisit a universe where there was Queen Hela and Prince Thor and Prince Loki who could all get along and were actually the royalty on Earth and not just in Asgard. And seeing things like Sir Fury, Wanda Merlin, Rogers Hood, even though he was the forerunner, the Merry Men, all of these different things defo want to revisit. So what did you think of What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602? Do let me know in the comments below or on my social media. The links are in the description. I would love to hear your thoughts, your theories all about this episode and the rest of What If. I do intend to break down the What If episodes, but because obviously it was over the Christmas period, I wasn't going to try and basically spend every day not sleeping and just on the laptop. And I'm kind of glad I started with this one because it's the one I'm most excited about, and I'm actually going to go backwards. So the next one I do, well, the next one I do will be the finale. Then it will be What If Hela found the 10 rings? Then it will be What If Coyote reshaped the world? Then it would be What If Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? And so on. So hopefully by the end of January, start February, I'll have done the entire season. But I also know Echo is coming, but I probably won't be doing as much content about Echo that I will like What If. Also, there are plenty of Funko Pops to come. I got plenty for Christmas, so do stick around. I would appreciate it if you could give the video a like. For more content, press that subscribe button. I'm Nico at POP Incursions. Thanks for watching.